The big budget comes out last night. What does it mean to negative gearing today? What does it mean to first home buyers today? What property changes are in there? We're going to unpack it. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Oh, Lisa, this is your favorite topic. You love talking numbers.
Love it. Love it. You know, it's really funny because if someone had told me back in high school that my career was going to be all about, or not all about, but, you know, vastly about numbers, I would have said there is not a chance in the world. And here I find myself all day, every day, having to deal with numbers. So, which actually I've come to enjoy, Mark. And
Yeah,
I've even come.
it's the same set of numbers you're dealing with. So, it's little, you get used to that type of crunching.
Yeah, and also data.
Data.
You used to talk about data, and I'd like, oh, roll my eyes. Now I'm like constantly looking at data.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's
So what do you
funny.
reckon about this budget, Lise?
Look, I think, like with any budget, there's always winners and there's always losers. I think, you're going to find there's going to be people that are going to be happy with it, and there's going to be people that are not happy with it. There was probably not as much focus on housing as I thought there was going to be, housing and property. The biggest winners, what I've taken out of it is the biggest winners seem to be the first home buyers.
Yeah, it's interesting because I felt like there was a lot of talk in the budget about the budget prior to the budget about property, but then I think the things that actually realistically hit the ground, you're right. There's not like it's good, but yeah, not what we
I mean,
thought.
I was just chat GPTing it actually, Mark, a few minutes before we just came on, just to get a good synopsis as to exactly, what related to property there. There's not a whole lot. Like I would have thought that there would have been a massive focus on it. And I suppose that, the whole low to medium density that's just come through, that's a big focus. And I know that that's got nothing to do with the budget, but, there's definitely going to be a huge amount of change there. But definitely
Yeah.
those first home buyers, that seems to be the big one, doesn't it? Where that threshold got lifted significantly.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting with the first home buyer stuff is because when it came into play, interest rates were low. So you could you could qualify for a loan quite easily with your income for a first home buyer loan. But it got to a stage where the interest rates were so high, you needed to have this, even just for a basic first home buyer home, you needed to have an enormous income, then you didn't qualify. Because there was a qualification of you earned too much as a first home buyer. It's like, hang on a sec, if I'm only buying something for 600 grand and I'm earning too much as a first home buyer, what else is anyone going to buy out there? So they really needed to move that threshold.
Yeah.
So big tick. So the
So
income
that,
threshold's been moved for first home buyers in the budget.
yeah, which is massive.
Yeah.
So and it got moved from, was it 950,000 mark up to 1.3?
No, that was the income threshold.
Okay, so
So what?
let's break it down. Let's break it
This is
down for
this,
everyone.
well, this is good because Lisa, I can go through numbers with you. But the actual income a buyer needed to earn to buy a property. So, for instance, the government said you want to buy something for 600 grand. They said, how much do you earn? You said 100 grand, and they said, no, you earn too much. And they went, well,
That's
the
right.
broker said I don't earn enough. And you're saying that it just didn't match up. So now there's a bit of matchy. They've increased that what income you're earning a year to match the property value. Because the interest rates change, you almost need 50% more income for the same loan.
Yeah.
So that's been changed. And then they changed what you've just referred to. They've changed the big number, the top line number, the property purchase, the asset
But
value number. That's gone
that
up
that
now as well, because in Sydney
that
you couldn't buy much in some some of the mainstream suburbs.
Well, if you have a look, for instance, at and we've actually just gone through this with our daughter, but if you have a look at even entry level property prices on the Northern Beaches, I mean, those 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. Now, this is an affordable area. People used to, for instance, be looking to buy maybe in the eastern suburbs, and then they couldn't, so they started turning their attention towards areas like the Northern Beaches that
Yeah.
were much more affordable. But now we're very quickly catching up as well. So
Yep.
entry level for an apartment on the Northern Beaches, if you're a first home buyer, you used to be able to pick up a 1 bedroom apartment for $550,000. We
Yep.
just sold one in DY, a neat and tidy 1 bedroom apartment, relatively renovated, quite close to the beach, Pacific Parade, lots of apartments on that particular pocket there. And that just transacted for 740,000. That's for a
Yep.
1 bedroom apartment. So they really just had to lift it, didn't they? 2 bedroom apartments. I mean, we just sold one, a 2 bedroom, like needed a huge amount of renovation, quite close to the beach, ground floor. We just sold a 2 bedder in DY for 900,000.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
had to
So
be
that's
done.
that's all. It had to move up, otherwise. Yeah, and DY is not a, I wouldn't say, premium suburb across Sydney, where it really should be qualifying for first home buyer stock with basic 1 bedders and 2 bedders. So it's smart. What
Yeah,
else?
yeah. So definitely first home buyers are the winners. And I'd hazard a guess, Mark, that that's going to really continue to fuel that lower end of the market as well. That 1 and 2 bedroom apartment market, which actually has
Yes.
been performing really well over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, we're often talking in the office about how much those property prices have jumped. It's always supply versus demand. And even though there is usually quite an oversupply of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments on the market, there's also a massive demand. So, this first home buyer assistance here, this first home buyer scheme, is certainly going to just continue to fuel that, wouldn't you think?
Huge, it is. Now, negative gearing, we've been, investors have had a very hard time the last 20 years, 10 years, like pounded after pounded. They're still being pounded. So I was waiting for the discussion in the budget about negative gearing. There were threats that there were going to be changes with the negative gearing in this budget. There were, it's been on the headlines in the newspapers for a long, long time. Negative gearing, negative gearing, gearing. It's not right. It shouldn't be there. Should it be abolished? That sort of stuff. Didn't make the cut in the budget, thank God. And it's a big thing that fuels investors, negative gearing. So I'm glad they didn't touch it. But that was probably my biggest thing in this budget. I was like, if they do that, they'll be really dumb, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, 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 definitely. The other thing was these prefabbed houses.
Yep.
So there seems to be a little bit of assistance around that. I'm actually all for these houses, Mark.
What
We
is a
actually,
prefab house?
so it's something that basically the easiest way to describe it is it's a house that comes on the back of a truck, and
Yep.
that's the
Well,
easiest way to describe it. So
Yep.
rather than having to have a whole lot of builders there that are building a property,
Yep.
that could take months or a couple of years to build, this is a house that comes on the back of a truck, and it
Yep.
literally is put together within a matter of days.
Now,
Sometimes even same day. It's incredible.
what a great thing to do. Cheap and fast, and throw it in your backyard. I'm surprised we're not seeing more of them out there.
Me too. And they've come a really, really long way.
Yeah.
I know we were actually at the Easter show. I think it could have even been last year or the year before. And we saw this company there, not a paid advertisement, guys. We saw a company there called Same Day Granny Flats.
Like
And
what?
FYI, I think Granny Flats is a really bad name for a really, really good product. But
Shocker.
it,
Yeah. Yep.
isn't it? Like we
Totally.
need to find a new name for these fabulous properties.
Same
So
day house.
and the thing is that they're cheap. So I think it was
Yeah.
about, was it 30 or 40 grand, Mark, for the little
Yeah, it was
house?
39,995.
And
$39,000 for a house, 2-bedroom
and
house.
how many square meters?
40?
I mean, and they are immaculate,
Yeah,
absolutely immaculate. So,
yeah,
what a great product. And, you plonk something like that into your backyard, and, you're able to achieve a very, very decent rental out of it. And they are really neat and tidy. They look great, which is the
yeah.
main thing. And they're very, very easy to get installed.
It was like it's like a tiny home, but twice the size.
Yeah. No, really nice, like cute little
Yeah,
kitchen, nice
yeah,
bathroom. I don't know if it
yeah.
comes with aircon or not. But they're honestly phenomenal product, phenomenal. And they go up the same day. You literally
Same
call those
day.
guys. Next week you're gonna have one of them delivered. It's
You
unbelievable.
you plug it in like a dishwasher. Now in the budget, Dave's talked about fine tuning the compliance and a grant for development of these to be faster, stronger, better. But I think there was just this huge grey area about how do we treat these. We have a building code of Australia, very clear code for building if you want to build a house, but we don't have a very clear code for these medium manufactured homes. I know more laws, which makes me
Yeah.
bananas, but they do need to. But when they do introduce more laws, it's more acceptance and it's more versatility to where they can go. So that's going to be interesting. Our friends and family to be living in manufactured homes, and I think what a great option when you're a young couple or a young single or a retired single or couple, and you don't need much. It's a good option, and it's good the government's acknowledging them in their budget.
I agree. And not only that, but they achieve really good rents as well. So,
Yeah,
for one of these little prefabbed houses, guys, and they sort of range anywhere from about 35 meters squared, I think up to about 60 meters squared.
yeah.
You can expect to achieve a rental on these properties for anywhere between sort of 600 to, some of them we've seen achieve up to 950 or 1,000 a week, depending on what you do to them. Like some of them got beautiful big terraces, how you landscape it, if you're going to give parking and all that sort of stuff. So they can achieve phenomenal rents, and the rental market absolutely loves them. They
How good's
absolutely
that?
love them.
So that's the take on the budget that we've seen that we think most affect us. When there's anything else where we if we dig into this budget that we find, we'll let you know. Well done, go Liberal. Sorry, and should say Labor, but
You can't listen, doesn't matter what you say, you can't please everyone.
never talk politics, Lisa. Never talk politics. Anything else you want to add
That's
before
it.
we go?
And then there was obviously foreign investors was another thing that's all coming to a big grinding halt as well.
What's your take on
So,
that? You happy about that?
um, look, I'm sort of a bit two-sided with it all. I understand why, but I also think it's quite aggressive. Like I do understand why. I know that there's a housing crisis, but I think there's other ways that probably it could be addressed. I think stopping people from coming here and investing from overseas, I'm not sure that that's the right approach. But I guess from the government's perspective, they've got to look at all angles. We've got to look after, I guess, our own first. So I'm a bit two-sided on it. I don't know if that's the solution there. I think there's probably other ways, but anyway, whatever. Look, Mark, I'm not a politician. I look at things from, a very practical aspect, and I don't know that that's the right approach. I don't know that that's the
Good
right
for
approach.
votes.
What do you think?
It's good for votes. When I
Yeah.
see stuff like this, I think to myself, we never saw any. So we never had the guy coming in his jet from China and buying 10 houses. Like we never see any in
Oh,
our area. So I felt like it was more of we want to win the hearts of the community rather than the hardcore reality of we want to stop them buying.
okay. This is a subject that I actually really, really want to address, though. Can I just talk
Yeah.
about expats for a minute? I know that we're just sort of moving
No.
moving to a
Oh,
slight. Yes, I want to talk
no.
about it
No. You
because
said
I've heard.
short. You said short today, and now we're 5 minutes over.
Okay. Let me just
It's
quickly
yours.
address it. And no,
Uh-uh.
this is
No.
a topic for another day, but we do need to talk about the expats, Mark, and the
Don't
real
have time.
estate agencies that are calling
Don't
up
have
these
time.
poor vendors. Talking about expats. Okay, that's a topic for another day, guys. Be careful. All I want to say is do not drink the Kool-Aid. Do not drink the Kool-Aid. Beautiful vendors of mine the other day drank the Kool-Aid. Actually, not the first ones this week either. I've heard it a handful of times about real estate agencies calling up saying we've got an expat. Guys, do you honestly think that expats do not have access to the internet? And that only that one agent has got access to some rich person coming from overseas with a bag full of cash. Be careful.
You couldn't be stopped, could you, Lise? You had to.
Unstoppable. That's it.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks,
See you
Lise.
guys. Take
Cheers.
care.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.